So vision, mission, values, strategy, methods. FCA is huge on making these things a priority. This is what drives us. This is what keeps our focus. This is what gauges our success. Y'all been around enough organizations, I'm sure, to understand these 5 things are important. And so we're going to move through them fairly quickly, but if you have questions about any of it, ask. We can stop and talk. This first part is only going to take about an hour, so plenty of time before we get really hungry and want to go eat lunch. So vision, see the world transformed by Jesus through the influence of coaches and athletes. And this is, some of these things are going to change up in this next year. So our year starts in August or September. Every year they kind of reset stuff. They reset budgets, they reset initiatives and all that good stuff. And so we just got word a couple weeks ago that some of these are going to change slightly and there's going to be some variance, but for today this is what we have, which is our vision is only possible with Jesus, which is the best visions to have. Is like, for a Christian organization and our vision includes anything else but Jesus, we're going in the wrong direction. So our vision is very focused on Jesus does the work, Jesus does the transformation, Jesus transforms. We just get to be a part of that. We just get to play the hands and feet of what Jesus is doing in their lives. The vision is the why. Why we do what we do. We do it because we've been called to do it. We've been called to see the world transformed through Jesus. We've been called to make disciples. I would say FCA up until a few years ago, maybe just a couple, was heavily focused on event-driven ministry, which means FCA was come to these big events, come to the huddles, come to these things, get to know Jesus at school, and then we'll let the churches take it from here. Over the last couple of years, FCA took a look at their vision and mission and looked at what they were really doing and decided we need to make disciples. Well, we can't just get people here and then push them to somebody else to do the heavy lifting. We need to be making disciples as well. And so we took a shift and said we're going to be a disciple-making ministry. We're still going to plug people into churches. We're still going to coordinate with other ministries, but we need to be focused on what it is to make a disciple. And so all of this vision is why we do what we do. And it leads us into our mission, which is to lead every coach and athlete into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ and his church. And that's the key part. Like we love sport ministry, we love hanging out and playing, but if it's not leading them somewhere, then we're just another group coming in to have fun with them. We're just another group there to encourage, and they get that from other places, but they get Jesus from other places. So FCA is very intentional and very focused on not taking Jesus, that's a bad term because he's already there, but leading them to Jesus through the ministry and the work that we do, through the presence. You'll see later this afternoon as we talk about character coaching, it's all about presence. Are we there in their lives, and through that presence, are we helping direct their focus towards Jesus, or are we helping direct their focus towards the wins and losses? Or are we helping direct the focus to us? And there's only one real way we can be effective in a sport ministry, and that's to focus them towards Jesus. And so as we lead them to Jesus, our mission, I heard this from a group called Soma Church, Soma Communities from the Northwest. They do this really well. The mission is not the activity. It's not kind of what we do and how we do it. It's the people. The mission is the people. And for us, it's every coach, every athlete. But to reach every coach, every athlete in eastern New Mexico, it's going to take hundreds of volunteers, hundreds of hours, hundreds of avenues to be able to reach the thousands of athletes, the hundreds, if not thousands of coaches. we've got 63 campuses in our area, eastern New Mexico. From northeast all the way to southeastern New Mexico, 63 campuses. We've got a ton of campuses, and each campus has a handful of sports. Each campus has 10s and 15s, 20s coaches. I mean, that adds up really quickly, and there's a lot to do. And like y'all mentioned earlier, maybe one staff member in an entire school might already know Jesus and be saved and be on the mission. But that's hard to do when you're only one person in a giant organization. And so our mission is to lead every coach and athlete into a growing relationship. So this is where discipleship really comes into play. If we put somebody in the path of all these coaches and athletes, what are they going to do? Are they just hanging out with them? Are they just encouraging them? Or are they leading them to Jesus and then helping them plug into a church? This is where a few weeks ago I had a meeting with a bunch of pastors. We're like, be a church that will accept people that come to know Jesus, because we're on the front lines and we're discipling people, and when they come to know Jesus, they need a place to plug in. Will you be that church? Will you commit to being that church that we can say, go here, go there? They're going to help you keep growing in this relationship. And so we had a great turnout today. I think we had 9 churches involved with that meeting, and so there's a lot of churches that are wanting to be a part of this, and then we have a way to plug them straight into those ministries once we lead them and help them grow and get them to see that they're better connected, not just out here kind of doing their own thing. So that's our mission, and our mission is the what. It really is the who, the action, and the result. The who is the coach and athlete. The action is making disciples. We have this great resource. It's called the Core, and it leads them through 8 essentials. It's kind of that baby step into understanding what your relationship with Jesus is. And FCA created it. It's a phenomenal resource. It's a really easy guide through that first steps of man, you know Jesus now. Here's some ways to build on that foundation, and it's a really great resource there that we can get anybody. So those are very phenomenal resources to use. Pursuing our mission gives direction. If we're not always focused on how do we get these coaches and athletes to move from thinking only about the wins, only about the sport, only about competition, and get them to see, I have a relationship with Jesus and that needs to grow while I'm being an influencer in my sport, then we will just kind of do whatever. So our mission of leading and guiding them helps push us in a direction. When we show up as character coaches to a team or to a coach's locker room and we say, we're here to help. If our main focus through that whole time, if our agenda is not, we want to help make and grow these guys into disciples, then we'll kind of do whatever we want. And we might lead them to be better athletes, or we might lead them to be kind of good people, but there's never a real kingdom growth mindset unless we lead with our vision of through the coaches and through Jesus Christ transformation, and then lead them into that growing relationship. We'll just kind of be that other person that's there bouncing other ideas on them. And so we lead with that, and we want them to understand that mission of making disciples, where we'll just keep repeating that over and over as we go through this training, and as we work with FCA, and as we're doing the things FCA is involved with. We are all about making disciples, and we want to see that happen. Our values are what guides us. So in our relationships, we will demonstrate steadfast commitment to Jesus through integrity, serving, teamwork, and excellence. This is these 4 values. They also guide us as we. Values are only good if we use them, and if we abide by them, and if we demonstrate them. right? All of our disciple making efforts will happen as we demonstrate these different values. Because every time you demonstrate some of these values, you're able to add into what you're telling them. Like, look, this is what I did for you. This is how I've handled these situations. This is how you can handle situations. So we guide them through these values as we live out the values. The values start here and they end up outwardly, and then we can begin to help transform lives as we live those out. Values are the core convictions that define us and drive our culture. If we come in and we're no different than the world, if we come in and we're no different than the counselor that they saw last week, if we come in and we're no different than the coach's assistant who sat down and talked with us last week about our attitude, if we're no different than that, if our values don't go deeper than that, again, we're just kind of another person. There's got to be something through FCA that's different. There's got to be something that when we step into a locker room with coaches and athletes, there's a difference. Our lives are different for a reason. It's because Jesus, but because of Jesus, these values seep out of us, seep into others, and then we grow from that. It also builds unity when we're all on the same page of we're going to live to serve, we're going to live with integrity, we're going to live as a team. And when we do those things, it builds this unity, and we're all striving for the same thing. So we'll walk through those values real quick. Demonstrate Christ-like wholeness inwardly and outwardly. Man, integrity has been lost so much. We see it in churches. We see it in secular business organizations. We see it. You can look anywhere at any point in time, and especially in places like New Mexico, where we're kind of on the bottom end of everything. A lot of times it feels like you have to kind of cheat your way to get your way because it's such a tough environment to live in. But if we're to be different, if we're going to bring Jesus' model into New Mexico, into eastern New Mexico, as we work with coaches and athletes, we have to be of the highest integrity. And as we're of the highest integrity, it's like anything else characteristic-wise. The more you do it, the more it rubs off on people. And if we're not demonstrating it, then where are they seeing it? Because it's easy to cheat a rule in sport. It's easy to fudge a score or to skip part of what you're supposed to do. But if we come in and we are demonstrating the deepest level of integrity, it's uncomfortable to have poor integrity when you're around people of integrity. Because you see them living it out so well that you're like, I feel so guilty. When you're around other people of low integrity, it's easy to just keep being that way because that's the norm. We have to raise the bar on integrity. And I like how they word this, that it starts inwardly. Y'all know this, but nothing you do outwardly comes from something that's not inward. So if we're not living personal lives of integrity, then we're never going to live it out in front of them as well. And that's very important. But Proverbs 11:3 speaks to it well. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them. Our integrity is what drives our energy. It's what drives our passion. It's what has got to drive everything. Because if we're not living wholesome inwardly, if we're not focused on the things above in our personal lives, and when we're at home and when we're in our car driving and when nobody's watching, if we're not living a life that would live up to the integrity of Jesus, then when we step out in front of people, it's hard to force that to come out when it's not lived out privately. So really, as you get involved more with ministry and FCA, we've got to be focused on our personal walk. We've got to be focused on living a life worthy of the calling to make disciples personally before it'll ever come out outwardly in a ministry. We see this break down time and time again when people are not of integrity at home, and then they try to lead an organization and it crumbles, or it's led poorly or inconsistent or ways of cheating. You've seen it 1,000 times when coaches or ministry leaders show up and their personal lives are all over the place. You can tell their ministries suffer, their teams suffer, the places in which they lead suffer because of what happens personally. We've got to be people of integrity, because that's what makes us different than the world. The world says we can cheat and fudge, but Christ leaves no room for fudging and cheating and skipping corners. The biggest thing, I'll step back on integrity one more time, and this will kind of touch on what we'll be as a character coach, is when you see players, even in the smallest thing that seems very insignificant, what we see a lot of when I was playing sports and then when I was helping coach a little bit, is players that'll take it just a half step short, right? We've all been maybe playing sports and you got to run lines or you got to run laps and you cut it just a little bit short. Well, if I'm just a half step short, I'm going to beat the guy next to me, but am I going to get better? And when we see those things as character coaches, or when we're able to point out those things, we've got to be gracious, but we've got to demonstrate, look, if you will go just that extra step, if you will take it to the whole extent of what you can and not cheat yourself, because that's what you're doing, you're cheating yourself, and you begin to show integrity in those little things, then you can start showing them integrity in the bigger things. And that's just a little key point to show it as we work with teams and athletes. There's easy ways to point out small bits of integrity that'll lead to the bigger things of integrity, how they live their lives personally and how they live it among others. Did y'all know Jesus was a servant? Probably not. It's never talked about. Serving. We will model Jesus' example of serving. This one's almost too easy that we can skip over it and just think, yeah, we serve. Everybody serves. Serve. Okay, we've heard that a million times. But serving really is, I would say, this is what will set apart a character coach from just another guy or gal helping out with a team, is serving. Yeah, anybody can be there. Anybody can be present. Anybody can show up. But what are you going to do when you show up? Well, Jesus modeled it in John 13. You all know the story of Jesus washing the feet of his disciples, and then he ends with the best part. For I have given you an example that you also should do as I have done to you. Jesus left no room to say, you could serve, or you don't have to serve, or you can, or you might, or there might be an opportunity to do what I did. And he left it pretty clear and straightforward and straight cut. Serve. Here's the best example I can give you. Now go do it for others. We like I said, we can get so focused or kind of blind to what serving really looks like. As a character coach or a volunteer with FCA, serving is less about being there and doing things and more about what needs to be done, recognizing the greatest need and jumping into it quickly and often. As a character coach, you're going to hear this afternoon that we are all about presence and about serving and loving. And anytime you see an opportunity, if you're going to shy away from it in the slightest bit, coaches are going to recognize that. Coaches and athletes are going to recognize that you're not willing to just jump in with 2 feet. Because a great coach, a great leader, they jump in and they do the small stuff. There was a really great story that popped up on Facebook, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, about this really great head coach. And I wish I could remember his name. But it says every practice that coach, and he was a top dog college coach, would show up and sweep the floor. He didn't know any better other than to serve. He's going to serve his team, do anything that would make his team better. And if showing up early to sweep the floor is what he needed to do, he did it. Or he stayed after and swept the floor. The story was phenomenal. I wish I could remember it better. But it's such a great example of when we see something, we need to step up and do it. Now, as character coaches, there's going to be some limitation to that, and we'll talk about that this afternoon. But stepping in and serving is more than just being there. It's picking up the dirty towels. It's picking up something that nobody else, that everybody walks by 5 times and you see it and you just do it. Those are the kinds of things that get noticed, and it shows our level of integrity. Like we notice the little things. We're going to take care of the little things because the little things matter, and serving in that way is huge. We've got teamwork. Again, another obvious, but can be kind of just, well, we know that, and so we skip over and we don't really think about it as often. We'll express our unity in Christ in all our relationships. See, this teamwork that we try to live by goes much further than I'm going to be part of this team, and this team is my team, and this is where I'm going to demonstrate teamwork. And then we step outside of the gym, outside of the locker room, and we're at odds with other church members, or we're at odds with our family members, or we're at odds with the other ministry that's on campus, or we're at odds with another staff member, or whatever it might be. Teamwork goes beyond, especially as a character coach, beyond just the team you're working with. It goes in all of our relationships. Family, friends, siblings, if you still have siblings around. Like, if we're not, this is, I think, steps back to integrity as well. If we're not willing to do teamwork in the other areas of our lives, it won't necessarily show up just because we hope it shows up with a team. And so teamwork all around is very important in all the relationships. Philippians 2, 1 through 5. I love Paul, and I actually joked around with my wife the other day. So I'm terrible at writing stuff, and she's a really good English person. And we were talking, and I had wrote this thing, and I had her proofread it. She goes, "This is just one big sentence. Like, what are you doing?" And then my dad, our pastor, stepped in and was like, "Oh, he's just writing like Paul." And because Paul wrote like the craziest big run-on sentences. And so every time we see something like this, I joke around with her. I'm just trying to live up to be like Paul. That's my goal, is to be like Paul. But it says, "So if there is any encouragement in Christ, any comfort from love, any participation in the Spirit, any affection and sympathy, complete my joy by being of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus." This selfishness, or not being selfish, I should say, is so huge when it comes to being with a team. And we'll hear about this more this afternoon as well. But when we step in with a coach or with a team or in any other relationship, if we are in it for anything else other than that person's growth, we're in it for the wrong reason. If we want to step into a team or with a coach because they're winning, and we want to receive recognition for, we're with Coach so-and-so, and he's 5 seasons straight state champion, and it's all trying to point back to us, then we're in it for the wrong reason. We'll hear a lot more about that this afternoon when we get into more detail about character coaching. But anytime we step into these relationships, it's got to be, how can I help them grow? The humility part of this is huge. We've got to humble ourselves down. We don't know it all. We don't know the Bible as well as we probably should. We don't know the sport that we might step into as good as that coach knows. Like, we don't know it all. We're there to love them and to serve them, and we've got to be thinking about them at all costs. We're going to hear this afternoon about character coaching. It's all about the coach. In everything we do, we want to consider, what does the coach need from me? How can I serve them? How can I love them? How can I care for them? We've got to be selfless when it comes to serving others. Excellence. This is one that I love. So, as sports-minded ministry, Every team wants to be the best. Every team, let me ask you this question. What does a team start a season for? What is their goal? To win. To win what? Every game? Some games? Every other game? Home games? What do they want to win? Something. Well, what's the something they're all going for? State champion. District champion. Super Bowl. Whatever the heck the sport is, and whatever league they're in, they're all shooting for that same goal. They want to win the championship. Going to the ship, right? And we just had two state champs from this area in baseball, Texaco and Logan. They just showed up and won state champs this weekend. So super pumped about that. But we want to be excellent in everything we do because teams want to be good, right? They want to be great. And as Christ followers, we're called to be excellent. Paul leaves no room for error here, and he says, in all that you do, this is this verse, in all, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord, not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. This is a key distinctive. When we step in with a coach or an athlete, this is what sets FCA apart. Yes, we want to win, but it's why we want to win that makes us different than others. Others want to win because they want the recognition. We want to win because we want to point glory back to Jesus, and we want to show how great Jesus has been to us, and we want to show how much he's worked in our lives. And even if we lose, we want to be it as best as possible. And so when we live lives of excellence, we live it because we know who we're working for. We know that even if, so this will play out in a lot of ways, but one major way this could play out for you as a character coach potentially is when you have a team that has a really poor coach. They're kind of jerks. They may be mean all the time or whatever, and these players just don't want to play for them. And the encouragement that we can bring as FCA is, look, you're not working for that coach. That coach is here to help you. They're here to guide you. They're here because the team needs a coach. But everything you do, you're working for Jesus anyway. And if you will keep that focus in mind, he's the best coach you'll ever have. And if you can remember that I'm working for that guy, I'm working for Jesus, I'm working to point glory back to him and not to my coach. My coach may receive some glory. My coach, I don't like him, but he may receive all kinds of praise and honor. But I'm working for Jesus and I'm giving my honor to him. And if that's that key distinctive that we can step into as Christians, as FCA, and say, look, if you will work for Jesus, if you will do everything the best you can because he's the one that gave you the ability, he's the one that gave you the strength, and if you will work as best as you can, as hard as you can for his glory, then it won't matter how bad your coach is or how mean your coach is or how ugly your coach is to you. You have the best coach in Jesus. And we're always pointing it back to Jesus. This is where we can help them grow, is when we see them slacking because coach is mean. Or when we see them slacking because coach may just not know a lot, right? There's bad coaches for different reasons. And sometimes you get a new coach and it's hard to work with because they're kind of lost and all over the place. They're getting there, but the teams are frustrated. And as you step in with them, look, guys, let's rally for Jesus instead of coach. Let's love coach through this because he needs it just as much. But we're performing not for coach or the fans. We're performing for Jesus. And we want to be excellent because of that. And excellence also goes beyond just their sport play as well. And it goes beyond character coaching, anything else that we're doing. It goes into all areas of our lives. This is where, when we talk about integrity, it's the personal things. Are we being excellent in the little things in our own lives? Are we performing things to excellent value in our personal lives so that it then reflects to those that we're serving as well? I love this one. This is where it's kind of going to change this year. Strategy, mission, methods, they're kind of going to shift some of the wording and stuff, but for now the strategy is to and through the coach. This is where I was saying everything we do as character coach, everything we do as FCA, when we step into a campus or into a locker room, it's all about the coach, because our strategy as FCA is if we can love on and serve and care for and minister to the coach and his family, and the coach is healthy, physically, spiritually, mentally, if we can help the coach be healthy, then his influence is going to go a lot further with athletes than our little bit of influence can go. And so in all things, we've got to consider the coach. So it's to and through the coach is highly, highly important. Strategy is our primary focus that ensures our mission is achieved. So if our mission is to lead every, which is a big, big, big number of people that we can't ever touch on our own, that we can never reach on our own. If we're to lead every, then if we can start with the coach has influence over the 12 basketball guys, he has influence over the 30, 40 track kids that he's coaching, over the 50-man team, football team he's coaching, or whatever program he's over, he's got that greater influence. Then he also has influence over the other coaches. And so if we can help coach get healthy, if we can help coach coach better and be a more servant-leading coach and know Jesus and grow as a disciple, then our mission can then take root and it will soar well beyond anything we can do. If we're going to try to, for a long time FCA tried to take athletes as our main mission focus. And they try to, if we can just reach these athletes, then these athletes will go and do the mission. Well, that's not necessarily true because they're still teenagers and there's still fear and anxiety about leading out in school. But a coach can influence without even saying a word. The coach can influence through his actions. And we've all seen bad coaches. Like I said earlier, we've all seen how a coach's bad influence can spread through a team. And how just one little character flaw in a coach can corrupt an entire team. And then all of a sudden you're like, why are these guys acting this way? Well, it's how their coach acts. Why are they screaming at each other? Well, that's how their coach acts. The same with parenting and anywhere else. The influencer kind of dictates the culture. And so if we can love on and serve and help unburden the coach from all of the stress that's pressed down on them and help them see that there's a better way, a more loving approach, a more servant approach to coaching, which is where one of our key tools comes in, is 3D coaching, three-dimensional coaching, not just coaching the X's and O's, but coaching the heart, coaching the spirit, right? And it's how we grow holistically instead of just being a really good coach for how a team operates game to game. How do they coach the spirit of a student, of an athlete? How do they coach the heart of an athlete? How are they coaching them in other ways other than this is how you shoot a ball, this is how you pass a ball, this is how you win games? And if we can get them to that point where they're serving their team holistically, then again their influence spreads like wildfire because they have the influence. FCA's recognize that's why we do what we do. This is our discipleship method. You've probably heard this a number of different ways, right? Discipleship methods have been around longer than anybody can ever imagine, and there's been different wording for them. There's been different, there's probably 10, 15 different circles out there of showing you how to make a disciple and what that looks like. Well, FCA has taken the initiative to create their own, to work out a language of discipleship that is these three things: engage, equip, and empower. Because this is a very strong way that coaches lead, it makes sense and engage. We engage relationally by connecting with individuals and through events in many different environments by building genuine trust. Sharing our lives and sharing the gospel, we strive to connect with coaches and athletes where they are on their spiritual journey. Engagement, or engage, is all about meeting a coach where they're at, meeting an athlete where they're at. They're already showing up to practice, they're already at games, they're already doing what they love. If we show up where they're at and show interest in what they're doing, and we connect with them, not only relationally, but also with the gospel, then we can begin to show them who Jesus is. And if they're lost, we help them get to know Jesus. If they know Jesus, we help them grow with Jesus. And then it leads us to the equipping phase. So today is kind of an equipping phase, right? You guys already know Jesus. You're here because you love Jesus and you want to see Jesus reaching into sports, and you want to be a part of that. After we cultivate relationships, and once coaches and athletes come to faith in Christ, we want to equip them with Christ-centered training, and this will happen in July. We're going to have a whole bunch of student athletes that are already leaders in some of the communities that we have FCA running already, and they're all going to come together, and we're going to equip them to then go into this next semester ready to share the gospel, ready to lead their teams to the gospel, ready to do whatever it takes to bring the gospel into their school, into their sport, whatever it looks like. We're going to lead them to that. We're also going to have an event for coaches. It's going to be the same thing in July, where we bring them together and we encourage them in their faith, or to grow in a faith of Jesus. And we're going to push them towards that, and we're going to equip them with the tools it takes to share a gospel with a teammate who's struggling, or share it with another coach who's gone off the rails, or whatever it might be. We want to give them the tools so that they can go back into their environment and be successful. So we've got resources, support, and really growing in God's Word. The distinctive. FCA is about helping them grow in Jesus. And we do that through God's Word. The core book helps us do that as well. It kind of, like I said, lays a nice little bottom layer on top of the foundation of Jesus so that we can build off of that. Our FCA Bibles are packed full of resources and devotionals and training guides of how to share your faith, and how to lead a Bible study, and how to do the things that are going to equip each other. We've also got coaches' Bibles that do the same thing. And then we empower them. This is that key part of discipleship. This is that final thread that once we've built relationship with them and we've given them tools to lead others to Jesus, it's not, we've all been around enough. It's not just leading them to Jesus. It's leading them to Jesus and then helping them lead others to Jesus, and to help them walk with others. And so we empower them. So once we equip, and once equipped, we empower faithful leaders who desire to use their time, talents, and treasures to help other coaches and athletes experience the gospel, grow in their faith, and share Him with others. We desire to develop disciples who make disciples, assisting them so that they can in turn engage, equip, and empower others to know and grow in Christ and lead others to do the same. Once they know Jesus, we've got to start giving them responsibility and leading them into growing in their own faith, and also helping others grow in their faith. This is where FCA has taken a huge shift and said, we're going to be disciple makers. We're not just going to win people to Jesus, but we're going to help them grow so that they can also win people to Jesus. This is that wildfire that spreads, because y'all all know that the multiplication is better than addition. We talk about it all the time in churches. It's constantly in the back of our minds, but it's very rarely ever accomplished. Because we're really good at engaging through activities, through events, through showing up. We're pretty good at equipping and leading Bible studies. It's when we get to this empowering part that discipleship kind of falls apart. And we forget that sometimes people just need to be walked with and demonstrated. I love the empower part. I love this. So I'll do you watch. Okay? I'll do you help. And then we flip it on them. You're going to do something, and I'm going to watch, or I'm going to help. And then you're going to do it, and I'm just going to step back and watch you do it. And then eventually I'm going to push you out, and you're going to do it on your own. And that's where empowerment comes in. Is we're going to make you do this on your own. We're going to get you to a point where you are leading other coaches. You are leading other athletes to faith in Christ. You're leading other students. You're starting a prayer group. You're leading a Bible study. You're winning other people to Jesus and walking them through this same path that we walked you through. Modeling is what we are designed to do. Nobody learns by the words that we say, they learn by the actions that we take. And that's why having a high personal integrity is very important to this part. Because they're going to see the way we live out our lives. And they're going to copy what we do. So if we show up and we're not of high integrity, if we're not serving, if we're not being team members, if we're not leading in those ways, then we're going to lead them somewhere other than to Jesus. So modeling is empowerment. That's how we empower them, is we model for them, we model for them, we model for them, and then we push them out of the nest. And hopefully they fly.